and he said that he used to, Simcha used to have him over.
But Simcha hated him.
Oh, yeah?
And he hated Simcha.
Oh, really?
My brother Simcha had his morals that he had to keep up to a T, and he wanted everybody around him to do the same. And he and Shubitz collided. But it's not that Shubitz had the bad morals or anything,
right.
But Shubitz wanted his way, and my brother Simcha wanted his way. So there were very lots of discrepancies, and all that.
Friction.
Yeah, friction.
But I remember Shubitz used to, when we used to go there, say, for a meal on Friday night, Shubitz would be there. I mean, it wasn't as though they were estranged or anything.
Well, there were always strained relations between the two of them, because Shubitz was very learned. Not in Gemara and all that, I don't think. Maybe he did. But he was learned. He was well read.
Right.
I wouldn't say that he graduated at the university, but he was very well read in Yiddish, only Yiddish.
Right.
And Simcha was an all-rounder. He had a brain that absorbed a lot. And he didn't see eye to eye with him. They discussed certain things that they've read,
right.
And one might Simcha, oh yes, he was good in Hebrew. Oh yeah,
really?
Everything.
Now, Dad told me that Simcha had a whole bunch of books that were left-leaning. They were discussing about Marxism and communism and that kind of thing. I imagine that Mr. Shubitz was not at all interested in that.
No, of course not. He was rich with his money.
But he was a big capitalist. And he was perhaps, Simcha was perhaps sympathetic maybe a little bit to Marxist things. So right there they must have collided.
Yeah, quite right. No, Simcha was very liberal in many, not as far as giving in, everyday business, because he was very bad-tempered. Because due to sickness, he's been ill for a long time. But as far as knowledge, nobody could match my theory.
No one could match Simcha?
No, nobody could match him.
Right.
He was so well read. He was a bookworm to a T.
Now let me ask you a question, a hypothetical question. But let's say Simcha would have been able to go to any university he wanted.
Of course.
What would he have done in his life? What do you think he would have liked to do? He could have, money would not have been a problem if he could have just gone to any university.
Well, he enrolled at university.
Right, he went for 1 year.
Yeah, but I forget what he took up.
It was railway engineering.
Railway engineering, that's right.
Railway engineering?
Yeah. Well, in Russia in those days, the railways were not functioning too well, and they were trying to improve.
Right.
And there was a big call for them.
Right. Okay, that's very practical. I'm just saying, if he would have had his choice to do whatever he wanted without having to worry about money, about earning a living, what do you think he would have become? A professor? Would he have become? What do you think he would have wanted to be?
Well, he wanted knowledge. That man could absorb. I don't know what.
Can I suggest that in answer to your question, he would have been a lawyer or a judge.
Or a judge.
Yeah.
Because he loved jurisprudence.
He loved jurisprudence. He
loved jurisprudence. He loved legal matters.
Oh, yeah.
His great ambition was for Nathan to be Advocate Levine.
Really?
Yeah.
Advocate in South Africa means what exactly?
Means that's the term of that's the sort of honorific term for a lawyer, an advocate.
In Russia, it's also advocate.
Right. Now, I'm just saying, I know in England, Solicitor General is one thing, and
this would
meaning.
This would be the guy who took silk, in English terms.
The guy who took silk,
which means the Queen's Counsel or the King's Counsel.
I see.
And that was his ambition for Nathan, because he had a great admiration for the law and for and in fact, I always remember that he liked to sit in his office and dispense advice,
Really?
People would come to him and, he would discuss the legal implications of a business move or something like that.
Really?
And he also was well-versed in politics. So I think running the business for him was something he had to do, but really it wasn't his vocation. Wasn't his vocation? I think would have been to be a learned jurist of some sort. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Just from knowing him.
That makes sense.
Oh, he was.
But the reason I asked is my brother, who's quite brilliant and lives. In a couple of senses, maybe take that for granted, just from what you told me
I think so.
on Friday and today. So, he's had the opportunity to go to become an MD, PhD, and become a great neuro-ophthalmologist. I'm just wondering what he would have done had he had that opportunity.
Oh, yes, he would have.
He would have become a great jurist, a great judge, a great...
Yeah, he used to read books on cases. Cases, I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
Court cases.
Sure. Case law.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That man absorbed knowledge. I don't know whether he had the capacity for that. It wasn't a subject that he couldn't discuss.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go back to South Africa in the early years. So, you got married before him, is that right?
Oh, yes, long before.
So you were married already for a while, then?
Yeah.
Okay, and this was in South Africa?
He married actually for convenience, because you see, the man was so absorbed in gaining knowledge and learning things and all that, that he couldn't keep a job.
Really?
He couldn't, because it wasn't sort of up to his, if he would have been a professional, yes.
What did he try to do? What things did he try to do?
Well,
his job?
He had a business.
So that was later, but before he got to the business, he tried to do different things?
He didn't try to do anything. He used to read every day. He go to university. And
when you say he couldn't keep a job, you mean he wasn't cut out for a job and he never tried?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I think that's what you mean.
I mean, it's not that he fought fights. He was fighting with people.
Right. How did your mother and father relate to him?
Well, my father was, he adored him being the firstborn and all that.
Right.
And my mother too. She was the top notch.
Really?
Yeah, because she was so knowledgeable.
Really? Wow. How were things when they came to a family function, like a wedding or something like that? How did they...
No, he didn't like to go to affairs or anything.
He didn't like that?
No. Yeah, he wasn't much of a social...
No.
I remember the social side of family, of our family, and five kids, a lot of... that was something that was he did very perfunctorily. It wasn't to his interest. He liked to stay at home and read. Or sort of interact with his cronies, businessmen and lawyers and people like that.
That's it. That's what I very good to say. He only looked down on people who are not, who have got no knowledge or whatever.
I remember that, his brothers and my dad, they liked to play cards, and he disdained that sort of thing. And he used to give them a dressing down. You guys, you live this frivolous kind of existence, playing cards, all that nonsense, He sort of thought they were, that was frivolous business,
The only cards that he played was with my husband, Klabayas.
Yeah, he played at Klabayas occasionally.
Yeah.
But Klabayas?
It's a silly game. Whoever has the biggest cards wins,
Now, Klabayas was a very popular game among South African Jews.
I've heard of canasta.
And it's known, I think you can play, it's also, it's known as Klob in the States. I don't know if you've heard of it. Klob. Klabayas was just,
silly game.
It's, I wouldn't say it's a silly game.
And if you can cover it, then the trick is yours.
Anyway.
If you don't cover it, the trick is not yours. Am I right?
So he must have been very nice to your husband to to do that? Because I thought that he normally did not do it. He did not play cards. Did he?
My husband, he didn't know my husband. Did Simcha know my husband, the show?
Of course he knew him. What are you talking about,
He
Mark?
did.
Of course. No, they used to treat each other, you know, they were not birds of a feather, but they always treated each other very, you know, respectfully and politely. I remember that.
Wow.
But of course he knew
He's
him.
got a wonderful memory.
Right. Well, you have memory of things that go way back. So let me think what else I want to ask you. Oh, like let's say when my father was born, all right, and he made the bris, all right. So did he speak at the bris? Did he?
No, he give a speech.
Did he give a speech?
No.
Was he a speaker?
I think he used to speak when I'll tell you, when he had a business, a wholesale business,
Right.
and he was sort of mixed up with the merchants, you know, and sometimes they had meetings, so he did speak, but only for business, very seldom, because he didn't circulate amongst people too much. He came home, he had his dinner, had a shower or whatever, and went to bed with his books.
Really?
Yeah. He had no social life.
But you told me though that one of the things you mentioned on Friday, if I could paraphrase it, is he didn't suffer fools gladly.
No.
He didn't like.
He hated fools. You looked down on them.
And when someone had a foolish
And
statement.
he was open about it.
Right, and he couldn't tolerate a foolish
No,
statement.
he couldn't.
Right. So, but you told me also when he would go to shul, so he would talk to the rabbis. He would
Yeah.
So in other words, what I am understanding is if there was any intelligent person, all right, that he could talk to on his level, he would search enough to have a discussion with him. Is that right?
Well, I don't think he would search.
Not search.
Because he wouldn't waste any energy on searching people in order to discuss it. Rather, read his books.
Did he have any close friends that you remember? Any special close friends?
During business, you know, he knew everybody and people respected
Well,
him.
wasn't Plain a friend of his?
But he was...
Plain.
A Plain, the same A Plain that you mentioned earlier. Was he not a friend of Simcha's?
Who was a friend?
Plain, Mr. Plain.
Plain. He was a much older man.
Right.
Because he liked Simcha, you know. Simcha was clever. He was very... The man was a going library. And the way he could absorb knowledge by reading, one cannot imagine that that person could exist like that. The way, that's why he was nervous in some ways. He was very intolerant.
I remember, though, you know, that he was a good raconteur. I can remember Simcha, in some of his less frequent, relaxed periods. He had some very good stories of the early days in South Africa, and he had some. He was a good storyteller.
Really?
Yeah. It was.
Do you remember any particular stories or how he told them?
No, just that I was a youngster, but I always remember that it was pleasant to listen to him because he had some very interesting stories to tell about those days. You know, characters that he knew in business, or the people he had to deal with. Not all Jews, but just the people that he had to. That he came across interesting characters, interesting events. South Africa in those days was quite a lively place, and
like the Wild West in America.
Well, yeah. So, but that's that's a side of him that I do remember. He could always reminisce. He'd get him going, and he was never at a loss. For taking up a story and telling it interestingly.
Yeah. Do you remember it that way? Do you remember him like that?
Yeah. But at home it was different, because he was a very serious man, and business didn't go right with them.
Was there any one event that ended the business, or?
Only Minnie and him.
I think was there any event like you said, the There was once the story with the carload of wheat that ended your father. Was there anything that happened to theirs?
This never happened to him.
It just slowly deteriorated. That kind of.
No, he had no.
Didn't have success.
No, nothing. That was long before the Mrs. started.
Right. No, I'm saying, but did any major event happen? Right.
Well, I don't know major events. No.
But I recall that, you know, when in the early days, I think they seemed to prosper and be comfortable. You know, Minnie was heavily involved in the business. She sort of looked after the sort of day-to-day running of things. Simcha would be more, you know, he
wasn't a businessman.
Yeah, he, as I say, I think business was something that was just a necessity. It was not his vocation.
Right.
But then I guess when sometime after I left South Africa, which would be in the 50s, I guess that's when things apparently went bad with their business. But I have no way of knowing what the cause was.
Why didn't your mom help run that business? If she was such a great business lady.
Well, she was dead then.
Oh, at what point was it? When did she pass away?
Well, she must have passed away in the late 40s.
In the late 40s.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did your father pass away? We said in 19...
he passed away in the 30s.
So one second, where did your mother live for those years after your father passed away?
We had a house, and then my mother moved into an apartment.
Was your mother ever by you or by Simcha?
No.
No. By any of the kids? She was by her own place? She was by her own place. Oh. Wow.
Well, I think she tended to spend more time, you know, take meals and so on at Frida's.
At Frida's.
Because Frida kept kosher.
Oh, Frida kept kosher?
Yeah.
And she kept kosher?
And she kept kosher. And my mother, God bless her, was not quite so observant in those matters.
My husband didn't believe in it, you know.
Right.
My husband didn't believe in kashrut.
Right.
Can you do?
Okay, well, Kasha believes in him. Right.
Pardon?
No, just, so let's see. What else do we want to know about Simcha? What other areas?
Well, I can tell you, you know, that Simcha, of course, had a prolonged illness. He had this accident, and he.
What was the accident? I've heard about this accident. What was it exactly?
It was some automatic crash. That's all I know. And so he would take the car with his driver around the country. I guess hustling. You know, I can't give you details. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe he had to, you know, go out and interact with customers and that sort of thing. And I think on one of those occasions, I guess there was a bad accident. But the thing I wanted
to... What does it mean, someone crashed into him, or he crashed into a...
Well, he wasn't a driver. He never drove.
He never drove.
Did he know how to drive?
Yeah.
He never, I don't know what the reason was, he never drove. So Minnie drove, his wife drove, or their black driver drove. He never drove. He had a lot of sort of lordly ways about him, and that was one of them. And anyway, but the thing is, I remember that when he was in the hospital, and he spent, of course, Nathan then was a resident, and through Nathan, of course, Simcha got good treatment, and he, according to Nathan will tell you the story that he used to hold court there in his hospital bed with all the young doctors. As I say, he was a good raconteur, and he used to keep. He enjoyed a wide sort of circle of admirers when he was in hospital among all of the young doctors and nurses, and because he was an interesting guy, had a lot of interesting stories to tell. But I always, Nathan will tell you, you get Nathan to expand on that, he'll tell you.
Right.
But Simcha would have been, in a way, in his element there, because he was surrounded by professional, intelligent people.
Right.
And that's when he would always, that's when he would shine, you see.
Right. Now, I'm sure that whole stance in his life probably contributed to him wanting my father and Uncle Bernard to go to university and to get a good education and all that. That was probably why it was so important to him. Is that right?
Well, he didn't see them going to university. They were still small.
When he passed away.
Yeah.
Now, what are you talking about, Martin? How are you getting mixed up?
Did Nathan go to university when David was when Simcha was alive?
Of course, Mother. He was. I've just been saying that Nathan was already a resident, an intern at the hospital when Simcha was a patient there. And it's through Nathan's good offices that Simcha used to enjoy.
That's why he used to. I thought because when he was bedridden in the hospital, the young doctors used to congregate around him,
Yeah, but these were all, and a lot of these guys were friends of Nathan's. And Bernard was at university. He was still alive when Bernard was at university. I wasn't there, but I know that.
Okay. If you don't mind, let me just go.
No memory.
Okay, let me go back. This already is the era that, of course, where my father already and Uncle Bernard was doing very well. But let me go back a little bit, back to Europe. Okay. Let me ask you not so much about the family, but about what it was like living there. Like you mentioned on Friday that they didn't have cars when you were a little girl.
Cars?
They didn't have cars. You said they had a horse-drawn wagon.
Yeah, a horse and cart.
A horse and cart. What kind of people lived there? Like what kind of characters? Do you remember any person who had like a very
They were ordinary people like us.
Right.
Of course, they weren't as worldly, naturally, but they played cards. They told jokes. They did, but of course they had a lot of burden to make a living.
Right. The economy was very bad.
Things were very, very hard.
Right. What did they do when a little girl got sick? Like what were they?
There were doctors.
There were doctors that were.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the same kind of care they have.
We never sort of had the cause to have surgery or anything. So I don't think anybody of us was admitted to hospital.
Right.
So we were young naturally.
Right.
So there was this question was not included.
Right. What do you remember any kinds of personalities, not necessarily from the family, even people that you knew, that were there rich people? Were there rich people back there who were very powerful?
Of course, yeah.
Were there people who were?
Yes, but we never, as far as our family was concerned, we stuck to our class.
Okay. What was your class? What was that called?
Well, middle class people.
Okay.
Good Jews, clean living. That's how it was.
And were there any social clubs, or was just the show?
My dear, who had time to go to social clubs?
No one had.
You were hard put to earn a living.
Really? And that's the whole time that was doing
that's what it is. You went in the morning, you have your shower, you have your breakfast, you go to business, and you come back and you nurse your troubles and all that.
You mean to tell me people took showers? I thought maybe once a week you went to the Schwitz.
They used to go to the banya.
The banya?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'd say a shower,
It's a communal type bath, a bathhouse.
Never had a shower, but I mean you wash yourself every morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how my mother.
But didn't they have a sort of a bathhouse? People would go and once a week.
That's a banya.
Okay.
And do you remember, were there any comedians in your time? Were there any songsters?
They used to come artists, yeah.
What's that?
Artists used to visit our place.
Artists? Yeah, what kind of artists?
Yes, and produce a play or whatever.
And produce a play?
Yeah. I was also that actress.
You were an actress? You were an actress?
When I came from Russia, there was a family, also Russian family, but I didn't know them. But by the name of Mine, that's where my name is Mine.
Right.
I married a Mine. And through him, and then the family came to visit me, and I got very friendly with one of them, who subsequently was my husband, David's father.
Right.
So what was I talking about?
About becoming an actress.
Yeah. So anyway, one day he came to me and he said to me, we are producing a play. Oh, what was the name of the play? Anyway, and he said, I would like to give you a part. And that's how our love affair started.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Yeah.
So this was in amateur dramatics that you and Dad kind of got to know each other. Is that right?
What did you say?
That you were in amateur dramatics.
Yeah.
That you got to know each
Of
other.
course, nothing special, you know.
So the what kind of, do you remember what kind of play was it? Was it
Yeah.
a comedy or a
In Yiddish, it was in Yiddish.
In Yiddish.
Yeah, yeah. I could speak English then.
Right. And it was a funny, was it a funny play? Was it a?
It was a play about a family where the children grow up and they scatter, you know, and all that. Just you know, we would call it silly now.
Sounds like something from Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then, did you act in any more plays?
No.
You acted any more plays, or
No,
just that one?
only this play.
Only that one.
When, you know, the rehearsals took a long time, and I was at school and I didn't want to waste my time.
Yeah. This was in South Africa, in Krugersdorp.
Right. Now, let's going back to Europe, to Lithuania and Latvia. I just want to know, what kind of people were there? So they were very scholarly people, I think, right?
What's right?
With the people in Lithuania and Latvia, they were very scholarly, but they weren't Hasidim. They weren't Hasidim, they were Litvaks, right?
They were Litvaks, but they were Hasidim.
There was
a Hasidus, a shul in
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. What?
Are you sure, Mark?
Oh, they used to dance, you know, on
Yeah.
Yom Tov.
Yes, you saw them dancing in circles.
Yeah, in circles, yes. Oh, well, yeah, the Hasidim were quite prominent.
Did they wear strimal?
Pardon?
Did they wear the strimal to
Oh,
turn out?
yeah. All regalia.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, sort of an outpost of Hasidim in the strange, in the sort of remote.
There were jokes about Hasidim.
Oh, yeah, that's a joke.
Well, I can't
Yeah, but it's, no. I just told the joke to put this on the record to my father and to David.
Your father used to laugh at the Hasidim always.
I may have the details wrong, and it's obviously a stereotypical joke, but the way it goes is there's three people and the times of the year to stay away from them. You should stay away from a Litvak during Elul, because in the month before Rosh Hashanah, the weight of the Day of Judgment lies heavily upon them, not much fun to be around. And to stay away from I believe a Chassid or a Hungarian during the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks of the mourning on the temple, because again, they're not much fun to be around. And the Galiciana, the whole year. Stay away.
That's a good one.
So that's the...
Why did they dislike the Galiciana?
I have no idea. And it's not a, I'm sure the Galiciana maybe had something to say about everyone else, but I don't know.
You know, my grandfather remarried again. That reminds me of this, and she was from Galiciana.
Yeah.
You know, from
The second wife or the third wife?
I don't know.
Okay.
He had a few wives, my grandson. He was a very unlucky man.
Yeah.
They died. So if it wouldn't be in this time of life, we would think that he was a mass killer or something.
Really? Wow, I think.
So he married a Galit, right?
Yeah, so he married a Galiciana.
Yeah.
And you didn't get along with her so well?
Oh yes, she was a very good woman.
She was.
Yes. She was a very good woman.
That's wonderful.
Very good mom.
In this town that you grew up, were most of the people who kept Shabbos? Most people they didn't keep Shabbos? Everyone kept kosher, right?
Oh yes.
You couldn't buy anything that wasn't kosher?
You couldn't know the difference between kosher. It was only kosher.
It was only kosher.
We didn't know the difference. My mother was very strict.
She was very
You know, my grandfather...
strict religiously.
My grandfather was head schmidt and Rabbonis, you know.
Right,
He didn't practice as a role.
But not the Belville.
No, my mother's father.
My
Janusz.
What's that?
Janusz.
The May office.
Yeah, Vilna. My office.
Okay. Right. So she was very strict, right. So,
you know the derivation of my office, don't you, Arnold? You know that.
well, I know that there's a very famous song called My Office.
Yeah.
How beautiful.
How beautiful, right.
My
Right.
office.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a beautiful name because there was mostly Rabbonim and very highly educated people. Although you see, my grandfather was a small number who belonged to the Rabbonim. They were all the musicians, I told you about them, who were performed in the shows. And they were all from the Conservatoire of Music from,
Right.
what city did you mention?
Vienna.
Vienna. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the Fritzl Mayata sounds like a very special person.
Yeah.
He used to be very nice to you, you said, right?
Oh, yes.
He was very nice. He loved
But
children. He loved children.
I saw him very seldom because
Right.
we lived near Vilna, in Yanushik.
Right.
And we lived
And then he went to Ravna, right? He went to Ravna afterwards.
No, that's the son went to Ravna, they're all.
Fritzl Mayata, Fritzl.
Herzl, yes, that's my grandfather's son.
Herzl's father was you say had Semitic, right? Herzl's father, my
her grandfather. That's right.
Granny's father had, you say he was a rabbi. That's
No,
what you said, in Yanushik.
Her grandfather.
My mother's father.
Mother's father,
Who had
right.
shmichas and rabbonos.
Right.
But he didn't practice as a rabbi.
Right.
Because he had a big business to run.
Right, but he had a son, Fritzl Mayata.
He was a son who was
her
Herzl.
her mother.
Right, that's right.
And he was the one who got married in Ravna and Kabbalah for sure in Ravna, and he had this big chasna with this Swedish group that made a big impression on me. Right.
What a beautiful culture.
You should see my chasna. We also had, we had it wasn't quite like Ravna, but we had, it was a very interesting place to
Are
hold.
your parents very, isn't Shubitz your father?
No, even that's Nathan my father.
Oh, Nathan
Right,
is your
yeah.
father.
Right. Minnie was my granny.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's Nathan's mother. Right. That's right. Right.
Nathan's mother was your grandmother.
Right. That's Minnie. Right. That's right. So
apropos, what did you say that?
we just got sidetracked onto the Mayaphasis. Oh, you talking about the wedding. The wedding.
The wedding, yes.
Wedding, yes. Actually, I don't even have the video of my wedding yet, believe it or not, even though we married about 7.5 years. There was a couple of complications that came up with it.
Oh, those weddings. I mean, when I was a child, my mother used to take me
Yeah.
to weddings, but all the time they were dancing all the time.
Did you like to dress up for those weddings?
Well, if I had enough dresses, I used to dress up.
Really?
No, we had bad times when my father was away in South Africa and the war broke
How did you
out.
survive during that time?
Well, we couldn't get any money from South Africa.
So how did you get...
My father used to send the money to London, and London wouldn't send money to Russia.
Wow.
Because this Mr. Plain, I was telling you about, said to my mother, don't get the money because the communists, the Bolsheviks will take it away from you. So the money, London didn't send the money.
Wow. So how did you
my
find the
grandfather had a house, so we moved in with my grandfather, and he had a store, so we lived, he helped us.
So it was not developable you moved into it. And he helped you out with the store. So that's that whole period of about 4 years, 5 years.
Well, but we were children, what did we know?
Right. But he was very friendly to you, not developable? He was very friendly to Simcha.
Nathan's grandfather.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, your grandfather, not developable.
Yeah.
But he loved Simcha, you said.
Oh, Simcha was his beloved.
So like that period of 4 or 5 years, they were actually living in the same house together.
Yeah.
And was he nice to you and Freda also?
Yes, but he didn't like girls,
Especially not when they cut up the sofa. The dress. He probably didn't like that much either.
That was terrible.
What did they do to you?
Well...
Did you get spanked?
Did you get spanked at all? That's right. Did they spank you?
No, he didn't spank.
And what about her?
He was very annoyed, which was right.
Well, I guess so, yeah.
She was a new bride. She was an old woman when he married.
Right.
She was a new bride, and then here it comes such a lot of fortress. They didn't have any bigger trouble than that, so that was a big thing.
Did you get spanked?
Did you get spanked at all? That's right. Did they spank you?
No, he didn't spank.
And what about her?
He was very annoyed. Which was an old woman when he married.
Right.
she was a new bride, and then here it comes such a lot of fortress. They didn't have any bigger trouble than that, so that was a big thing.
So 1 second now, that means you moved into the house with him.
Yeah, no, that was before we moved in.
That was the first guy. But I think when you moved in, and he was married to this third wife.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a sense, it's very nice of her, because that, in other words, she
Well,
was now sharing her house with 5
listen, the
people.
women had no say in the matter.
Actually, they never say anything.
But she was a very good woman.
Really? She was a good woman?
Very good woman. Very good.
Wow.
Very nice.
Now,
My grandfather was very strict. Oh.
he was very strict. What was he strict? What did he do? What did he
Well,
he wouldn't just give you candies.
When we sat down at the table, wouldn't be a murmur.
Everyone had to be quiet.
Yeah, quiet.
And you were you not supposed to talk unless you were spoken to?
Yeah. Very, very strict man.
Wow. When's your...
What did I know?
Can I just take a break, actually?
Yeah.
Let's have to get out of the automatic sensor. Are we on?
We're on. I'm not.
So Dad had asked me to pick up something for Auntie Leah. So my wife, Rachel Leah, who is the consummate shopper, went to one of the fanciest stores in Borough Park, which is the world center for Orthodox Jewish shopping. And she went and she got this, and she actually had a whole discussion with the shopkeeper. This is a scarf that on Friday we gave to Auntie Leah, and she said she liked it a lot.
Gorgeous, absolutely.
So I just wanted to...
I'll treasure it.
My
Tell your
father-
wife I'll treasure it.
Am I messing this up? That's the thing, whatever. Okay,
Oh,
this is
isn't
okay.
that gorgeous? Oh,
Hold it up. Hold it up.
Hold it up, okay, hold it up. This is,
Yeah,
no,
beautiful.
that's the right side.
that's what I say. Yeah. My mom always says that Auntie Leah was always a smart dresser and everything, and she saw her at the Bas Mitzvah by Uncle Bernard and Katie's Bas Mitzvah, and she was always then a beautiful lady with a smart dresser. She told me that just for, so she said this would be just right for her.
Oh,
So she wears it in good health, Mr. Hay.
Thank you, my darling.
And the other thing we gave her was one of the volumes I've been working on was for Art Skills, it's the latest volume, and I was, you know, we put a little marker here, those 2 paper clips, some of the parts that I worked on, and we showed her, or inscribed it to, for my dear great aunt, Auntie Leah, until 120 and beyond, on the occasion of my visit here in Winnipeg, and the visit here of my father and my sister.
God bless you, my darling.
Arnold Levine, also known as Henoch Moshe, son of Dr. Nathan Levine, son of Simon Levine.
That's
which
a
of course,
lovely
Auntie Leah's brother.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's Simcha, not Simon.
Simcha. But he was called Simon also, no?
Well, he was called Simon, but I mean, I don't think his name. He wasn't Shimon.
No, but he was not
No.
correct.
Well,
But
his
he was
name
called-
was Simcha.
Right.
Yeah, but
You
his
see,
his everyday name
you
was
can't
Simon.
ask an
What's
Englishman.
Simcha?
An
Okay, so
Englishman.
let me put that in. Simcha.
You can't ask an Englishman to say Simcha.
Aha. I see what you're saying, right, that's right. That was the name of
And for
convenience.
business, that's
All right, great.
It's a nom d'affaires.
Number. So I just want to wind up with 2 questions now. This is much later. This is in South Africa.
yeah,
So when my father and Uncle Bernard were growing up,
yeah.
what were they like when they were children?
Well, they were very tempered.
Yes.
They always had a white European nurse for the children.
Yes.
Mark, can I interrupt? I would say a better word would be protected. They led a very protected.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say pampered.
They were absolutely doted on.
Uh-huh. And how was they? I'm sure my granny Minnie
Yeah.
was thrilled with them. They, was with them all.
Well, your Granny Minnie was a type on her own. She was the essence of goodness. She was a wonderful woman in every respect. And my brother Simcha, due to illness, the previous illness, he wasn't too tolerant. And she smoothed everything out. And there was never a ripple because she was so clever,
And what do you remember your interaction with my father, you call him Native, and Bernard? What were they like as children? How do you remember
they
them?
were lovely children,
Yeah.
very protected,
They were very smart, no?
very smart. Oh, very school, yeah. very smart at school.
Right. Do you remember any stories that you would go to visit them? Like maybe at the bar mitzvah, you went to bar mitzvahs, right?
Oh yes, thank God I was for every celebration.
At every celebration?
It was all, Simcha used to beam with happiness, you know.
Yeah.
And lots of nice people always. Simcha had new nice people. Always nice people, and good gatherings and all that. And of course, very well catered.
Right. Now at Bernard's bar mitzvah, the dad must have been about 20 years old. So that was he was married already, or was getting married soon, is that correct?
He was, who?
My father. When did he get married? How old was he?
He was very young.
Do you remember how old he was when he got married?
I was a very young kid, but
Right.
I don't know. He looked
Do you remember
to me. He
Could
looked
have
to
been
he looked to me
21.
to be in his 20s.
Right. So he got married very, very soon after that bar mitzvah, I think, right? Or a couple of years after that bar mitzvah. Because Bernard is 7 years younger than my father. So
after whose bar mitzvah?
Bernard's bar mitzvah.
Oh, you mean Nathan got... Sorry. I take
Right.
all that back. I was talking about... yeah, I think Nathan and your mother, he was still a med student when they became
Yes,
friends.
I think they were in the early years.
And I don't
I
think...
think the second year or
And
third.
I wasn't at their wedding because I'd left the country. So I would have said that they got married. They must have got married in 1955 or 6. That would be my guess. So what does that make Nathan? Nathan must have been in his 20s, yeah, in his mid-20s.
Did they come and visit you, my father?
Oh yes,
Lady and Bernard?
he brought her, yes.
Yeah. And how were they at your house? They were well behaved. They treated you nicely.
Very well behaved children, because they always had a nice nurse to look after them. Minnie was in business, you know, and they always had good people to look after the children.
And
And
who
they
did-
sent them to good schools. They went to the best schools.
Right. And who did they take after in personality?
Well, you know, Nate is a very shy person, and when he was young, he was very, very shy. Protected, you know. They were, I think they were too isolated. Simcha didn't want them to play with other children in case they catch disease. That's the kind
They
of...
wouldn't, I'll tell you, give you an instance.
Yes.
You know, every kid had a bike. He wouldn't allow them to have a bike.
Oh, because it was dangerous. They
It was
felt.
dangerous, yeah. You know, they were so precious. He didn't want any possible danger.
Yeah.
It was incredible how super protective he was.
I see.
Very
You know, I find it just very interesting.
Many likewise.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, it's just on that subject. It's interesting. When I was a child, I remember I used to love climbing trees, which is actually substantially more dangerous than riding a bike.
Right.
At least in low traffic areas. And my mother, for good reason, had some concerns about that. And and also I think I had at one point a little bit of a condition. I would black out once in a while, when I was a child. And I think that was also part of it. So, but my father felt that he had to let a boy be a boy and climb
that boy
trees.
must be...
Well, Nathan...
No, but not Simcha.
Right.
These children did not enjoy the children's pranks or be in a fight with other children. They went to the best school and always met at the school gates and all that. They led a very protected life.
So it sounds like Simcha didn't have tolerance for childishness even in children.
It's not that he loved
that's a
his
good way of
children.
putting it, I think.
No, but he was a coward by nature. He was afraid the children would catch a disease or be hurt by anybody, and then that's why he kept them in a cage.
Catholic.
Yeah.
And Bernard also.
The same, yeah.
And was Bernard
But of course, with Bernard, times were not as good when they were married. When Nate was a small child, they had a nurse always, but not as expensive and all that because they couldn't afford it. Simcha lost a lot of money.
Right. But you said that was a slow process, there's not one sudden event, it was a slow process of losing money, right?
Yeah. It wasn't quite a slow process, but it wasn't just a sudden bankruptcy, but because they tried to, and they were silly, They should have gone if you have a bankruptcy, have it good and solid, and lose plenty. So you were left with something. And they were being honest people. They kept on trying to solve it, but you see, Minnie was a sick woman for a long time. And Minnie was the head of the business. Simcha was the, what should I say, the ornament of the business.
Yeah, it sounds like the last good business person of any gender in the family was your mother.
Oh, yes.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No.
Dave Levine was a very successful businessman.
Dave Levine is
My brother.
oh, right,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Randall's elder brother.
Okay.
And, you know, but he was a reckless guy. He made fortunes and he lost fortunes. But I would say that he had a good business head.
Okay.
And you know, he was different. You know, he was a pretty ruthless guy, and you know, and he made a lot of money. But as I say, he lost. You know, he was reckless. He squandered money. He was a character. I would say polar opposite to Simcha.
Really?
In every way. Yeah.
Not a bookworm.
But no.
Women, everything, you know. You're talking of David.
Yeah, they came up. Yeah, right, okay.
Women were his relation.
So do you remember when you had my father Nancy and Uncle Bernard in your home? So you remember, like,
Well,
they allowed you to hug them and everything? I mean, very overprotective. But their aunt, they allowed to hug them, right?
they never took the children anywhere.
So they took them to your house sometimes, no?
Well, sometimes maybe the nurse would bring them, but not Simcha and Mimi. Simcha and Mimi.
Were you walking distance?
They were no, but not far.
Not far.
But you see, Simcha and Mimi were engrossed in the business. That was the trouble. If they would have had a strange person, you know, a manager or something, maybe they wouldn't have lost their money. Anyway, they used to start early in the morning and come late at night, and Simcha wasn't a well man.
Right.
And
What disease did he have?
Simcha had a double pneumonia when he was a boy of 15.
And it never recovered?
And he never cleared up.
Is that possible, medicine?
Well, I can't say. I can't vouch for that.
Okay. So he had something obviously wrong with him, right?
Well,
He used to catch colds often, you know, because his chest.
well, let's say that he didn't present the picture of a robust man.
I see, okay.
But then, you know, he was a sedentary individual. He was
very bad-tempered.
You know, his passion was books and discussion
And ideas.
stuff like that, and ideas.
Right. Now, I know both my father and Uncle Bernard are big readers. I mean, you know, there's any book
no
that comes out.
comparison to Simcha.
Oh, really?
No
Really?
comparison to him. He was a maniac with knowledge, attaining knowledge.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I think he had a couple of friends who they used to discuss, you know, matters